laughing. They look happy, but this could actually be sexual harassment. It's really up to you to report. But at the same time and stuff, right? So a lot of the times and stuff, we're not gonna talk about like normal people and stuff. We're talking about like things that happen, within the government, like one of your leaders and stuff. And I was thinking about it earlier, and I was talking about like I was like, oh, okay, a public apology or whatnot and stuff, right? And I guess I suppose I wanted to build on that a little bit because a lot of times and stuff, it's if you sit back and you look at like the track record, of like I don't know. I'm not really sure if we expect like like our public officials when they mess up to like give us a public apology and stuff or whatnot. She probably wanted one from Anthony Weiner. I demand an apology. And I want all of the pictures on his phone taken. And stuff like that and stuff. So if he would have came out, and gave like a public apology, it probably would have ruined his record. If I'm right, he still has a seat. He's still sitting there and stuff, right? Because I saw him. Well, he went to jail for a while and stuff too, didn't he? Didn't he get like a charge for that? He got caught like, sending pictures across the internet and stuff, right? Um, um, so I'm not really sure. I think that he did a little time and stuff, right? Or whatever. If I'm right, he's still sitting there, in the seat that he was sitting on and stuff, right? But public apology, hmm, I don't know. I think that like because in normal life, if you were expected to give a public apology for like everything that you do, and I'm telling to you right now, if you were expected, if you were expected to give a public apology, let's just say, you know, we start giving public apologies for just about basically anything. You could be sitting there and stuff, right? Let's say you're at work in a room full of people and you let loose a fart, or something like that. This is a very embarrassing situation. Of course, people at work, especially women, are going to be like, oh, they're going to look at you with condemnation. Why did you do it, Bob? Why? And so it just imagine and stuff like later and stuff. You're like sitting there. You're like, okay, that's it. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna give a public apology, right? And believe me, build it, and they will come. People are gonna come. You're gonna sit there and they're gonna watch and everything while you go through your apology and stuff. Most people aren't gonna. They're probably not gonna care and stuff, right? So when politicians and stuff like that come out and give public apology, I think it's just for like comedic. I think it's for comedic relief, comedy relief and stuff, right? Because some of these guys that come out and they're crying, and they're crying real tears and stuff, right? Like they're really sorry they got caught in that hotel room with that woman in the crack. And then like a lot of times and stuff, right? But in the case of one Marion Barry, I believe that it was, what's the word that we're talking? It was entrapment. Okay, listen. He didn't go out. He went up there. They already had cameras. They were trying to trap him. They had cameras. She invited him into the room. Let's check this out. Okay, well, what man is it gonna do? Okay, she look good and shit. Oh, come on inside. You get inside. She's got a bikini on and she's got some crack. Whatever and stuff. And they were already filming, so it was kind of like entrapment. And that's why he got his job back. Smirk, smirk. But at the same time, a lot of people and stuff will sit there and they'll say like, oh, this shouldn't be, But if I'm right, I believe he also actually came out and gave a public apology. He came out and told us how sorry he was, for getting caught in that hotel room with that woman and all that crap. Because in real life and stuff, if you didn't know they was filming, you'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Here, put something. Yeah, okay, like this. Mm-hmm. Turn around a little bit. That's what would happen in a real situation, right? But the FBI, they had all that on camera and stuff, right? Which is why they took him out. But he did get like a a public apology, and he gave a public apology, and that was it. You know, but I think that sometimes it gets like kind of what's the word that I'm looking for? It would get kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh Jesus Christ. I'm just saying, if you know, if you get, if you get, like Tiger Woods, you know, a lot of people and stuff, right? You know, the guys really don't want an apology. They tell you the truth about the matter and stuff, because he had like 19 girlfriends. I was like, damn. You know, we're like, damn. You know, outside of his wife and stuff, you know, actually that's when we found out that Tiger was a sex addict and stuff like that, and they tried to get him some help. I thought he was already getting help, but that was, that's just my thinking. You know, it's like my problem. I'm a recreational drug user, and I can never find a goddamn rec room. But at the same time and stuff, right? People will sit back and they think about this stuff, right? And they'll tell you, they'll be like, oh, a public apology is actually the thing, the way to go and stuff, right? A public apology